What is up, everyone? Hey, how's it going? Yes, in the house. Yes, science is key and math is also very key. It's important to do a little bit of math each day, try to solve a little bit of problems and advance your mathematical ability, and it will help in all kinds of other ways in your life too. You should be I was at a I was at a lemonade stand with a kid who must have been like 16, and he couldn't give me the correct change for, he didn't know how to do change. And that's like, stuff like that. You should just drill until you got it. And sometimes you have to do that until you have such a command over it. You can train your brain to kind of think and understand things mathematically and do a lot of mathematical equations. Just the more you do it, the more you practice it, the stronger your math muscles will be, and definitely is key for going further in ufology or any of these subjects. The NSA and I know a number of people who went to school for math and they got scooped up by Booz Allen Hamilton because they hire mathematicians and people who can do statistics and actuarial work. An actuary is like a person who works for an insurance company and calculates all the different risks and liabilities, and so they know what to charge for insurance. Really good stuff. But welcome to the show. Lots of cool stuff to talk about tonight. And glad to see lots of people here and lots of people watching these streams. So we'll talk about some examples that I want to bring up, and then I'm going to show some back story stuff. But Michio Kaku, Ross Pomeroy of realclearscience.com wrote this article about Michio Kaku, always being a bit out there, but now he just has come out. And Michio Kaku's kind of an interesting guy, and there's been a lot of debate within some circles about are these celebrity scientists CIA agents, or do they always have to work for a CIA friendly stance whenever they speak out or talk. And it's a lot of this stuff. Of course, we know a lot of the media controls and censors stories which aren't popular or conducive to the overall agenda, and there's other reasons too. But we're going to talk about some of that today, and I wanted to share this thing. But before I talk about that, I did mention a couple of things that I wanted to mention real quick, because I said something about we had come up with all these great questions for we talk about a lot of other scientific channels a lot, and one of them that came up the other day was Theories of Everything with Kurt Jumungal. And I had said like, oh, we had came up with a whole bunch of questions for Kurt, and he didn't really get to our questions in the interview, and he said that he'll save them for part 2. But then we're still waiting for a lot of part 2s of some cool interviews that he's done, especially the Sal Pays interview, which part 1 was awesome, and we already covered that interview quite extensively. But I really want to get to some of the deeper questions that we raised in part 2 of that. And I know I wanted to give Kurt a shout out, because I know he was watching, and he watched that, or at least someone watched that and brought it to his attention, because he called me and left me a voice message, and I just wanted to share it with you all so you could hear it. So.
Hi, Jeremy. The reason for not placing your questions or all of your questions onto the Salvatore Pais interview, or any of the interviews in general, is because, keep in mind, I have about 200 questions or so, and that's not even counting my own, which generally are about 100 questions or even more. Sometimes it's about 200. And each person is about in the same boat as you, where they submit, let's say, 10 questions or so, and then they often don't get a single one in. In fact, you probably get some of the most questions answered compared to others. As for part 2,
I appreciate that,
with
man.
Sal, I'm still waiting for when Sal is free to do that in person. That's the only bottleneck. And then also, obviously, my schedule has to align as well. As for the questions not necessarily getting in and having to waste again, I'll just say that there's an adage, I think it's from Mike Tyson, that says everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face. And that, at least for me, is akin to doing a podcast where I'm paying attention to the guest, trying to understand them. I'm not trying to lead it to pre-planned questions. So next time, if you like, just send in 3 questions or 2 questions. I realize you have a variety, but that's not how it works, at least not with the TOE podcast. Okay, thanks, man. I hope that clarifies.
So yes, that does clarify, and I wanted to share that with my audience, so that I could clarify that with you guys as well. Thank you for that, Skynet super sticker. Yeah, Kurt is doing amazing work. He gets a lot of these great interviews, and he does his best to get a lot of good questions asked. And he's given me a number of shout outs on the show, and I really appreciate that. You brought a number of interesting people to this channel through your network, and the more intelligent people we can get, debating and discussing things that, again, yeah, I think it's important. You raise a good point, Michael. Noam Chomsky was right. We know something's up with the government, but the intel isn't actionable, really. Spreading the science will do a lot more good for society. Yeah, so definitely showing people, because we get a lot of these autodidactics in the group that don't believe that there's a lot of rebels, that come to this because they've rejected. And it gets to this point where you reject a lot of what mainstream has said. And, we there's been a lot of science, and there's been a lot of thought, and that's been wrong over the years. And that just has changed, and our thoughts continue to change all the time through these different Overton windows of what's acceptable and what isn't. And so it's interesting. It's interesting that, yeah, these things are important to discuss, because we need to be wary of certain groups and certain entities and what they may or may not have been involved in the past. But I guess in the future, it really gets down to what can we prove and where can we go from there. So want to talk about just some more of these manipulation techniques, because it's important to really teach this and drill this stuff, because we see it all the time. And it's good to point out, because not a lot of people in the mainstream talk about this, as we're going to look at shortly here. But here's a clip of the church committee that was hired to investigate the CIA and whether or not the CIA was involved in, a lot of covert activities against the American people, because they were, technically the CIA was supposed to only operate as a foreign intelligence collection service, and they weren't really legislatively authorized to operate domestically. But they were gathering a lot of evidence that the CIA was absolutely operating domestically, and this came out is the issue of media manipulation. That they were spending the equivalent back then in 1979. It was like $258 million a year, which is like 2 point something billion in today's dollars. So the ability to manipulate people's minds and manipulate the thoughts and control the perception and understandings of the public is a massive win for the CIA, and you're guaranteed that they're going to continue to do this type of operation. And if they say that they stopped doing all this, they just moved it underground. It's not. This is very revealing. Let's watch.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal? We do have people who submit pieces to American journals. Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks? This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
We have quite a lot of detailed information, and we will evaluate it, and we will include any evidence of wrongdoing or any evidence of impropriety in our final report and make recommendations.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the National News Services, AP and UPI? Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
That remains to be decided.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
Oh, wait, I'm muted. Hey, there we go. Yeah, I'd say, what does everyone else think about this? I have a couple other things I wanted to share here. Let's watch. I was watching Alex Jones testify in the defamation case. It's just quite sad. I think he's kind of reached the end. I don't know, but I'm not going to show that right now. I think what's another important thing to show is the CIA's manipulation of the media on certain events too. This was Dan Rather was a nobody. He was just a regular daytime television news correspondent at a Dallas TV network, and he launched a massive career for himself as a war propagandist, and as he continues to be. But this is rather interesting and revealing. This was aired a couple days after the Kennedy assassination.
Immediately, the president leaned over her way. It appeared that he might have brushed her legs. Mrs. Kennedy then literally went on the top of the trunk of the Lincoln car, put practically her whole body on the trunk, immediately threw herself over him in a protective position. In the next instant, with this time Mrs. Kennedy apparently looking on, a second shot, the third total shot, hit the president's head. His head could be seen to move violently forward. And Mrs. Kennedy stood up immediately. President's head. His head could be seen to move violently forward. And
so, yeah, I thought that was super interesting that Dan Rather launched his career by being the first person. He was actually shown the Zapruder film, and then they wouldn't show it to the public for 20 years. But he was told to tell the public about Zapruder film. Instead of showing it to the public, they trusted Dan Rather to tell them what was on the Zapruder film. Of course, we all know now that the head does not move violently forward upon the third final shot, which is actually probably the fifth shot, as some investigators have pointed out. That the magic bullet theory would have to explain a variety of wounds in the case, and it's just it doesn't make as much sense as a triangulated fire of a team of shooters. So I thought it was interesting, that Dan Rather, this CIA agent, got his start by lying for the CIA on daytime television and saying that Kennedy's head moved violently forward, when in fact it did not. It moved violently backward and to the left. But anyways, I thought that was legit. You guys want to? Oh yeah, this is the other thing I wanted to show, and I thought that this was well done. Mark Schuldice of YouTube is doing some really good work lately, and I just wanted to show off his latest. This is it, Facebook. Yeah, check this out.
Despite all the talk about fake news and the deep state trying to bring down President Trump, have you ever heard any political pundits on Fox News or anywhere else talk about Operation Mockingbird? Has Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, or any of the leading conservative voices in the mainstream ever brought it up? No, not a single time, with the exception of Candace Owens, who did tweet about it once, to be fair. The brand name conservatives are either completely ignorant and not nearly as informed as their audiences think, or they're too cowardly to dare to point out one of the most powerful forces behind much of the fake news that's produced in the world today. Or worse, I mean, maybe there's some other reasons they're pretending not to know about it. But at this point, if you haven't thoroughly discussed Operation Mockingbird, if you don't mention it on a regular basis, you're part of the problem. Of course, I've exposed Operation Mockingbird countless times over my 15 years on YouTube. Not to mention, there's a subsection in my book, The Resistance Manifesto, which first came out in 2005. The resistance back then meant opposition to the New World Order, but sadly, the left hijacked the term after the 2016 election, and now most people think the resistance refers to a bunch of celebrities and unhinged Democrats who constantly cry about Donald Trump. But anyway, I'm going to keep talking about Operation Mockingbird until it becomes as well known as the term fake news. Stay tuned because there's plenty more to come in this video, but real quick, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because obviously you're not going to hear this kind of information anywhere else. Because the mainstream media machine has the ability to shape the culture and the mindset of the nation by the information they choose to broadcast on a daily basis, intelligent people have a varying degree of awareness that the U.S. government is in bed with the mainstream media, and anyone who monitors the news media with a discerning eye can often easily identify specific stories and strategies that are being used to persuade and intimidate the population. As enlightened people know, the mainstream media operates both as a propaganda arm for the establishment as well as a gatekeeper that prevents certain information from being disseminated to the masses. The evidence for this is massive and irrefutable, the most damning of which comes from the findings of a Senate Select Committee in 1975 that investigated the CIA's covert influence over the mainstream media, including broadcast news, newspapers, magazines, everything. The committee, called the Church Committee, published its findings in 1976 and uncovered what was called Operation Mockingbird, which involved the CIA secretly paying editors of major media institutions and popular journalists to act as gatekeepers and propagandists for the establishment. In 1948, an espionage and counterintelligence branch within the CIA was created for the purpose of creating propaganda and launching economic warfare and other acts of subversion against hostile foreign governments, including offering assistance to anti-communist groups. Later that year, Operation Mockingbird was created in order to infiltrate mainstream media outlets. Philip Graham, the owner of the Washington Post, was recruited to help run the project within the industry and develop a network of assets who would go along with the program. A few years later, the network had influence over dozens of different newspapers, wire agencies, and all major television stations. Thomas Braden, who was the head of the International Organizations Division of the CIA, played a substantial role in Operation Mockingbird and later revealed, quote, If the director of the CIA wanted to extend a present, say, to someone in Europe, a labor leader, suppose he just thought this man could use $50,000. He's working well and doing a good job. He could just hand it over to him and never have to account to anybody. There was simply no limit to the money it could spend, and no limit to the people it could hire, and no limit to the activities it could decide were necessary to conduct the war. The secret war. It was multinational. According to the Senate's report that was published after the committee's investigation was complete, quote, the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers and periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and other foreign media outlets. The committee also concluded that the cost of the program was approximately $265 million a year, which, when adjusted for inflation in today's dollars, means they were spending almost $1.5 billion a year. After the Senate committee released its findings, Rolling Stone magazine published an article on Operation Mockingbird written by Carl Bernstein, who named various prominent journalists who were involved with it. These were people who worked for Newsweek, the New York Times, Time Magazine, the Washington Post, and many other brand name publications. Sadly, decades later, Carl Bernstein decided if he can't beat them, he would join them, and worked as an Operation Mockingbird mouthpiece throughout the Trump administration, doing everything that he could to try to derail the America First agenda. In 2007, a large amount of CIA documents called the Family Jewels were declassified and released by the National Security Archive, which revealed that the CIA had routinely wiretapped Washington-based reporters and committed other shady and illegal acts. The targets of these wiretaps were seen as threats to the establishment and were not playing along with the propaganda and gatekeeping efforts within the media establishment. So the CIA wanted to keep a close eye on them and gather information on their sources and future stories, and in some cases, I'm sure, blackmail them in order to control what they were reporting on. During the Trump administration, intelligence operatives didn't even have to hide in the shadows. They were paid contributors on CNN and were used to undermine him on a daily basis by giving the air of credibility to the latest conspiracy theory that was being concocted to keep him off balance and gaslight the American people with endless fear-mongering and fake news. As with nearly every other case of rampant institutional corruption in government agencies, the CIA claims to have ended Operation Mockingbird and their influence over the media. Another claim that's laughable. The power of the mass media to control society is too great for the establishment not to do everything that they can to harness it for their own benefit. But it doesn't end with TV networks and brand name newspapers. Around 2011, the U.S. government launched a program called Operation Earnest Voice, which uses specialized software that allows military personnel to create and manage fake social media profiles, known as sock puppets, of various supposed people in order to use them for propaganda purposes. The government claims they're only doing this on platforms outside of the United States because technically, until President Obama amended it in 2012, it was a violation of the Smith-Munn Modernization Act for the military to target our own citizens with propaganda. But it would be foolish to believe that such technology isn't being used by U.S. government agencies and psychological warfare campaigns on the major social media platforms to influence the American people. All while blaming the Russians, of course. If you didn't catch that, it's called Operation Earnest Voice, another issue you'll never hear any brand name Republicans talk about or supposed experts on social media manipulation. These kinds of topics are off limits to them. Their handlers don't want people to know what's really going on. Obviously, all countries engage in cyber warfare, and in the 21st century, that means flooding social media with bots, trolls, and sock puppets to push certain agendas or disrupt various discussions. The Chinese government was caught using Twitter trolls, posting propaganda videos on YouTube designed to demonize protesters in Hong Kong a few years ago when pro-democracy demonstrations broke out. And everyone knows that Russia supposedly used social media to cause disruptions during the 2016 election cycle by promoting both pro-Trump and anti-Trump content. However, its effect has been greatly exaggerated by Democrats, causing a modern-day moral panic. It's rarely reported that a huge Black Lives Matter Facebook page called Blacktivist, meaning Black Activist, which had over 360,000 followers, was found to be part of Russia's disinformation campaign against the United States and used the page to incite division and fan the flames of racism. Michael Moore even promoted and attended a protest outside of Trump Tower in New York City that had been organized by the Russians. So to say that Russian meddling on American social media platforms was just to support Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton is plain false. Or was it even Russia? Maybe it was their own deep state using Operation Earnest Voice software as a false flag to blame Russia as a pretext to paint Trump as a foreign asset. We'll never really know. One thing I do know, however, is if you like watching my videos, you'll really love reading my books. And there's a whole chapter on Operation Mockingbird in my book, The True Story of Fake News, How Mainstream Media Manipulates Millions, which you should order and pick back from Amazon.com or download the ebook from any of the major ebook stores. And of course, there's a link to the Amazon listing in the description below. So click it and head on over there and check it out.
Yeah, and Dice does have some pretty good books. So, you know, his books are a lot better even than his reporting. There's a lot of stuff that he can't include. So definitely check that out. I wanted to. He did another thing on this. I thought it was amazing. He did another. I'll have to go and find that now. I don't want to. But he did another whole video on this organization that meets out in Silicon Valley and does all the media, and there's a ton of media manipulation that's discussed there. But yeah, I guess it's the most actionable thing that we can have is how to steer clear of that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of that. So I don't know. Yeah, that was Mark Dice. Yeah. Yeah. FOIA requests are, I need to do more of that. I've never actually filed one, and I need to start doing it right away. And because there's a lot of stuff that I like to FOIA and try to get. We should hold like a workshop for how to do that sometime. Man, that'd be great. You know, too bad John Greenwald's such a baby. It'd be cool to get him on board with something like that. Let me see what we got here. CIA's Operation Mockingbird. Oh, another thing I wanted to point out that I found out, which I thought was cool, right? So we got to pick somewhere to drive out to. I'm out in Albuquerque, and last year I drove out to Corona, New Mexico, to go to the original Roswell crash site, and it was quite remote, way down out here somewhere. And we went and drove all the way out there. Then I think that we might go to the Very Large Array this year, which is the thing in Contact. You know, it's all the giant telescopes on wheels. You know, like this thing. That would be a cool place to go and record some stuff, huh? Are aliens real? Are they out there? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's out there in Socorro, New Mexico, about like 2 or 3 hour drive. About 2 hour drive from Albuquerque. Is maybe not bad. So, yeah, smash the like button and let me know if you want to see me go back to Roswell and try to like dig around there or more, or if you want to see me go to the Very Large Array this year. The other thing I wanted to talk about was this Skinwalker Ranch. So we had done some investigations before into Skinwalker Ranch and this triangle, and there's a power cable that comes off the road here, main power line, and but there's a very large power line that's out here that some researchers were pointing to, creating a lot of electrical anomalies, including some like St. Elmo's fire, you know, electrical arcs that would arc off these things and touch the ground and create some pretty weird phenomenon in the sky. But I went and tracked these power lines down, right? So if you go from here out to it's actually Craig, Colorado. Craig. And Craig, Colorado, down here is a big, gigantic coal mine where they're digging out a mountain of coal, and they're digging out all this coal out of the ground, and then they're moving it right over here and sorting it in these big sorting machines into these piles, and then they're taking those piles of coal and they're burning it and making a crap ton of electrical energy and power, which goes out on those wires to this main switch yard and goes to this very large distribution grid, which includes this power line that stretches for 120 miles to the west to Skinwalker Ranch. And boom, yeah. So, and it actually goes a little further than that, almost out to Salt Lake City, and there's another power plant that kind of takes over in that area, but distributes power to quite a large area, believe it or not. And it's coal power is. But anyways, I thought that was interesting. Maybe we can get some information on the electric circuit and the lines from that. Yeah. So this is the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. I want to focus on the CIA stuff exclusively, because I think that this Skinwalker Ranch thing, as I pointed out in that video, is part of because it's in the mainstream media. There's a whole television show about it. I just have very big suspicions about what's going on there, and the fact that all this ATIP stuff, which came up with some really good DIRD reports, which are hard to find. You go on John Greenwald's website and you find all this stuff about debunking this. I don't know, John Greenwald's FOIAs and the stuff that he's focused on is just kind of whack, and a lot of people have pointed that out, and he doesn't take the constructive criticism well. He just blocks people and cries like a little baby, which is sad for him. But he's got some stuff, a lot of stuff posted on here. So here are the Defense Intelligence Reference documents, and they're hard to find, but he's been posting a lot of other stuff. You can find a lot more of them if you search for Anthony Bragalia FOIA requests and stuff. Some of these are like the really whacked out ones and stuff. It's like the bad. I swear he puts the bad stuff, some of the bad stuff out on purpose. So the role of superconductors in gravity research. This is a good one, actually. That first one's just like crap. That's the one everyone makes fun of. But yeah, this is very, very basic, rudimentary overview of this stuff. Of course, we've interviewed half of these scientists and gone into great in-depth detail on these subjects with APEC and on the Alien Scientist show. But I thought this stuff is where the meat and potatoes is, and the real research. And this is interesting that it's been done. Yeah, you find a bunch more of them actually here. This is a good page, so I can't really talk too much shit. John Greenwald's just he ignores a lot of stuff, and he gets really opinionated, but it's good. This is some good stuff on here. So these DIRD reports is where the real meat and potatoes is in the science. If anyone wants to dig in and get into it and learn what's been tried already, what the what the engineering and the equations are around a lot of these things, and positron. There's a company. There's a couple companies working on positron propulsion. And is it called Positron Dynamics, guys? Positron Dynamics. That was this company. Yeah, Ryan Weed. This guy, and they're trying to do positron propulsion. beyond rocket propulsion. They're trying to do, positron stuff. And I haven't heard anything from them in a while. I really, I'm curious what they've been up to and where their research is at now. A couple years down the line. This is like 2015 that this was breaking out, and they were really, talking about it, and then it's been hushed the last couple of years. That's either a not a good thing, or it is a good thing, because a lot of times these guys get bought up by, Defense Department, and the stuff goes black, like what happened with Lake Marabou and his work, let me find that book, by the way. I'm gonna go and find Drive, Google Drive. Let's get the ET engineering. Yeah, and we're gonna search in this. Oh, I don't think it's on here anymore because we took it off. It's not on the drive anymore. Damn it. But it's gonna be in my own personal record somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look later. But damn it. I have a whole drive full of Lake Marabou stuff with his book in it. I have it backed up in a couple different places, but they might hit me with copyright strikes for showing it, just for showing pages of the book, because they literally bought out all the copies of the book, and now it's up to like $2,000 a copy if you want to buy a copy. There's a couple copies left that some people have and are trying to resell for like exorbitant amounts of money. Because it looks like the Pentagon literally went and bought out all the copies of the book when it went classified, and the stuff that they were working on. But yeah, this is the guy right here, Rensselaer Polytech. That's how a lot of this stuff happens. It happens with like think tanks that start at these private colleges or universities, and they take some grad students and develop them, or take recent PhD grads who have an idea, and then they just say, hey, we're going to give you an offer you can't refuse, and then you work for them. And curious to ask Travis Taylor more questions about how he got involved, but we all know his dad worked with Werner von Braun, right? His dad was a NASA scientist, so we know Huntsville, Alabama, how he got his foot in the door. But that's a question I have of is this guy legit? He seems like he does some legit science. He's got some good stuff that he's done, in his background. But is he out here on the show? Was he on like a show called Rocket City Rednecks? And is he out here representing all of science in the UFO field, or is he like a CIA friendly guy that they've put in this position and they've handpicked? And I have the same question about a lot of these guys, like Gary Nolan. He admits that he was approached by the CIA to study this stuff, and does that mean he still works for them? Does that mean, he's spreading disinformation for, actively? No, I don't think that. At least there's no evidence for that, as long as he's doing good science and good scientific research. But I just, maybe we'll see. We'll see if these guys will actually reach out and come, on a show like this and be asked a lot of hardcore questions, and that will be pretty telling about who they are and their motives and stuff. Which, Gary seems like just a guy who's curious about this. He probably thought it was crap before, but was given a lot of insights and stuff to look into. I guess they had given him this parts piece as part of that metamaterial crata with the U.S. Army. You know, this piece that they had given to the U.S. Army, and I guess some of the scientists they had look at it were Gary Nolan and Travis Taylor, because these are their guys for this kind of stuff, and they're the ones who found the micron layering of the two metals, which are dissimilar and normally don't bond together very well, I guess. We're still working on making some things like this in our lab, and developing systems to build this stuff, because then we can have something we can actually test, and some theoretical physics that we can actually do something with. Which there is some interesting theoretical physics with this stuff if you look into it. There's this thing called inertia, and this is an article by Cal Physics, originally published in Science in 1994, and this is what led to a lot of the thinking out of Caltech. This was a guy named Bernard Hayes, who was actually picked up by Lockheed Martin to do a lot of theoretical work, and wrote a lot of papers with Hal Puthoff and Alfonso Rueda. And yeah, this guy has some really interesting ideas about what inertia might be, and if we can get all the spin states. There's been a lot of ideas about these spin states and getting things aligned to cancel inertia, to overcome inertia. That inertia is like this construct of matter through this topology and these phases and stuff. I don't know. There's some interesting. There's a bunch of different interesting theories, but I'm not going to get into all of them tonight. But because we want to stay focused on the topic, which Operation Mockingbird. It's pretty crazy that they have people inside every single news agency, inside all the networks, and they're just, everything that you see that gets out to the mainstream, that gets out to large audiences and stuff, is pretty much, you have to understand that it's controlled and manipulated. And Jeremy Corbell can go to Fox News and they'll let him on, but maybe I'll go down to Fox News and try to see what happens when I ask them to let me on to talk about UFOs, and see if, because I'm not Jeremy Corbell, I don't know what how did he because he knows George Knapp, that's how he got on Joe Rogan. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense where some of these people come from, and the only way to make sense of it is to say that, yeah, well, there's a hidden hand, like they said in that example. They said, we like this one labor committee guy, we'll prop him up. What's to say that we won't covertly send him 50 grand through an anonymous donation? Well, that sounds like kind of like what I would do with a guy like Corbell. I'd give him a bunch of money secretly, and prop up his ego, and then lead him on, and then set him loose, and he's just a useful idiot. So is what he amounts to, right? Dude, Bob Lazar would never come on my channel, dude. Do you know that we have done the quintessential investigation on Bob Lazar? Like, I would destroy Jeremy Corbell with just like, you can ask me any question about Bob Lazar too. Like, what do you want to know about him? Where was he born? Coral Gables, Florida. He's got a sister. Do you know that? We have pictures of her. Like, there's like inside information that we have about the whole case that people would never know, and it shouldn't never like come out, man. Like, I almost want to do like a whole documentary about his real life and all the stuff that Jeremy Corbell left out of the film. And Lazar was a guy who met John Lear through a guy named Gene Huff, and Gene Huff and John Lear weren't even mentioned or shown in the film, but they're the guys who were on George Knapp before Bob Lazar. Were a year before Bob Lazar ever went on George Knapp and told his story to the world. John Lear was saying the same exact stuff, except he didn't have any proof. And then they had Bob Lazar. He was like the scientist who was going to sell this whole thing for hook, line, and sinker to the community, to the people. And like, you have to understand like where Bob Lazar was, who he was, where he came from, what kind of stuff he was doing. He wasn't doing like there's details about the case that are key, like that I get into. Every detail about the case, if you start getting into it, go over the timeline, the Bob Lazar timeline, because there's so much stuff he says that's not true. He says, oh, the government deleted all my records. No, that's not true. Like, news reporters and journalists were able to literally track down every single step of Bob Lazar's life, and I think that all the bizarre stuff that he lobs is he's got to be a CIA asset. Like, think about this, right? They love Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar made this story up, and he lied and created this. They would absolutely promote him, and they would love it. The best disinformation is the organic, genuine stuff. And he was borrowing a lot of the script from guys like John Lear, who were just masters at this stuff back in the day. And they had all the Billy Meyer stuff with the Adamski research, which came with the Otis T. Carr stuff of, Otis T. Carr was building these flying saucers back in the 50s and sold a whole bunch of people on, physics that he didn't even have. And he wasn't even a scientist, but just, was like, rode the flying saucer craze of the late 40s and tried to basically start a flying saucer company and swindled all kinds of investors. Didn't actually have anything. He didn't actually have anything. And there's people like that are out there, and there's people like me that just want to test this stuff and want to figure this out and get to the truth. And yeah, Jeremy Corbell is an interesting character, and certainly George Knapp and John Lear, because when George Knapp got a hold of this Bob Lazar story, his career started to explode, and then he, of course, was picked to be head of like all these UFO when the USSR disbanded and all the Russians gave up their files. They were actually given to George Knapp to release, to go through to then release to the public. So it's like, if he was a CIA liaison, that's a perfect placement, to get a hold of all those UFO files. And then I don't know, where did all of them go, and where's the whole ness of it? Because I know that there's a lot of files that that have never seen the light of day. Michael Schratt, his archive's so big. I'm going to have Michael Schratt on here again soon. I'm talking with him. He's got an archive so big, he could do a different story every week for the next 10 years and never run out of stories. So we're building some metamaterials and low rank metamaterials at the lab. I'm going to be going down there maybe a day or so before the conference, the 8th, and to try to film some of the work that we're doing down there on metamaterials, and maybe help build a couple metamaterials myself with some ideas that I have. Yeah, John Lear had a really great voice, back in the day before he really got into the some of the painkiller medications that he was on that really destroyed his neurology and nervous system. But he was really great back in the day. He had very convincing, and when he even told you, when he sold you the stories, it was very convincing coming from a guy like that, because he was a former CIA pilot, and but again, that's been used time and time again to say, oh, well, former CIA pilot weighs in on 9/11, and his of course his stuff that he said about 9/11 was just pure disinformation. So I thought that was super interesting. John Lear is an interesting guy to talk about, because he was CIA pilot, UFO conspiracy theorist extraordinaire. And do you think he was a double agent? Do you think he was, spreading this kind of information for the CIA directly? I don't know. because early on he really pissed them off because he was like going he went was one of the first people. The Area 51 didn't used to have security, and John Lear literally walked out to Area 51 and took pictures of a MiG that was sitting on the runway, and it was one of the only pictures up close of Area 51. And then they put in the gate, the perimeter gate, and the security and stuff, because they didn't need security before, you know, people like John Lear started poking around in there and then going on KLAS and blabbing about this secret base and all this crazy stuff that was going on out there. Of course, a lot of it was speculation and rumors, not based in actual fact. But nonetheless, it was super interesting. And I talked to a lot of the guys who worked out at Area 51 and have done a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of it's electronic warfare technology, ECMs, ECCMs. What are called electronic countermeasures. Yeah, like counter radar and counter like stealth technology, and of course Project Rainbow was started out there, and I talk about that a lot in my my overview, my UAP summary, which yeah, Project Rainbow was key because that was when the CIA, you know, 1946, they discovered nuclear magnetic resonance. You know, this was right after the atomic bomb, and this was like the next big secret thing. This was it. They developed, you know, NMR technology, a lot of spectroscopy. All modern chemistry is based on this discovery, with the NMR machine being able to do nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy to identify elements in a given sample. This is what they use now. And this was the development of metamaterials with Project Rainbow and the CIA's mapping of the EMF spectrum and doing everything they could with electromagnetic frequency responsive materials, and what happened with different types of materials and how did different materials respond. Of course, you know, antenna theory was pretty new at the time, and you know, so they experimented a lot with antennas and trying to build different things, and then that's how they eventually discovered grids worked the best, and that's led to the discovery of metamaterials and stuff. And but yeah, this is what a lot of the research is going on out at Area 51 is based around cloaking, stealth technology, and ways to do counter radar and counter invisibility, even counter invisibility, opening ways to look at and look for and beyond invisibility cloaks that the enemy might be using in future warfare battlefields and stuff. And you know, I already showed the video of the stealth tanks that they're working on. I don't know how many people have seen that. Here's the Anthony Bergalia FOIAs. It's kind of like a good chunk of a lot of good stuff all in one, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of missing stuff on the I'm going to put both of these in the description of this video so that people can find this stuff. This is super useful guides. And where's the Black Vault one? Yeah, this is where the real science is in the UFO field, and it's not a lot of the stuff's talked about. And then of course the drive.com has done a lot of, you know, great stories like blasting air in front of hypersonic vehicles with lasers leads to new hypersonic technology. This was based on a lot of Lake Marabou's research. If you know, you look up MYRABO with the search function on the page, you'll find that it talks about Lake Marabou. Yeah, Marabou. And here was one of the first to propose these laser light craft, and then they're like, "Oh, what if we put the laser on the craft itself, and then we just blasted it in front of the craft instead of behind it?" And one thing led to another, and now here we are with Mach 10, Mach 20, I guess Mach 15 or plus hypersonic missiles that they're just like insane with these nose cones using directed energy to literally open up a vortex of vacuum in front of the nose cone of the craft that for the thing to fly through. Yeah, and Lake Marabou's company was doing a lot of this research into this way back in the day. But no, this is different than these kinds of things. These kinds of things actually will warp the space-time if you put enough energy into them, theoretically. But who's to know that maybe we aren't warping the space-time a little bit with this blasting of the air, you know? And how much energy do we need to pump into that air to get it to supercavitate? And is there, at the point of supercavitation, is there some weird quantum effects that could also be occurring that might warp some space-time? Maybe we're opening up a little mini portal and we don't even realize it. You know, let's measure it. Let's throw an interferometer and do some of these tests on this stuff. I'm sure it's been done, and there's work on it. But what do you guys think? Is this the same process, or is it a different process that occurs in these types of terahertz metamaterials? Of course, they use the terahertz waves to kind of excite this region. And back to that other slide with the antenna theory slide, I thought that was there's some useful stuff to talk about within that. Because where's that slide? Dang it. Come on now. No. Not that one. No, it's up a little ways. It's right here. Come on now. Yes, sir. Boom. So this antenna theory thing, people don't understand about antennas, is that a lot of stuff is an antenna. You don't even realize it. If you pump like electromagnetic waves into a metal, it acts as an antenna, whether you like it or not. And if you shape the metal in different ways, it makes for a better antenna or a worse antenna. As anyone who used to own a television set before, you know, digital cable took over, some people still have, you know, radio televisions and have a radio. Most people have the radio receiver on the roof because it's just easier nowadays. It's clearer reception and stuff. But some people still got the bunny ears and used to play with the tin foil and try to build their own antennas, and notice certain things where sometimes certain shapes would work better and certain ones wouldn't. Actually, you know, they say like 19.2 inches is the height that you should adjust those ears to, and that you should put one of them at a slightly different angle than the other, but usually like oriented somewhat vertically for the horizontal polarization of most television waves. But a lot of these antenna theory and design are based on, you know, these kind of metamaterial type structures, these cell type structures. And but you'll notice that there's these fields that some of the fields actually, like, you know, like a magnetic field on a magnet goes out and it comes right back in the other side. It doesn't go like out into infinite space. It's actually a non-radiative field. It doesn't radiate. And a lot of electromagnetic activities don't really radiate far. They'll radiate a little bit and then they won't radiate far. And you can measure them with probes, and there's FCC regulations on electronics to make sure that they don't function as antennas accidentally and don't cause FCC interference on any radio frequencies that might be, you know, damaging to the operation of, you know, sensors or other devices that might be using those frequencies or what have you. What I think is interesting to point out is that there's this Fresnel or Fresnel region, which is this radiative region, and that in certain types of waves, like microwaves and terahertz waves, this Fresnel region can extend really, really far. And when people talk about scalar waves or scalar wave technology, what they're really talking about is technology which occurs within this Fresnel region. And this Fresnel region is where you get these this destructive interference patterns and these sort of cells where you can get these effects. So some of it's non-radiative, and then it gets, if it breaks that, then it actually can radiate, and you can get some types of scalar waves to radiate a little bit after a distance, which is interesting when we talk about like things like Havana syndrome weapons and stuff like that. But it's interesting science how wave theory and antenna theory work, and what kind of frequencies you can pump the electrons at inside of an antenna, and with what amplitude, and how to get that, how that's actually done with conventional electronics. Like the old electronics used to do this with this is a near field probe. It's looking for FCC compliance testing, and this is, of course, that frequency allocation chart, which is all the electromagnetic fields are broken down by spectrum, and you can get these charts for your different countries. A lot of times, sometimes they're not published, and sometimes they're just blank, left out, where it's like classified. There's a couple bands on there that says that, where it's like, no, this is the frequency that the CIA uses to talk, and you're not allowed to use it. And if you do, and we catch you, it's thousands of dollars to fine. And yeah, fractal antennas work really good too, as do those fields of kind of metamaterial, or row arranged antennas. Just what works due to the geometry, man. So we're working on building some of these things. We can actually build some split ring resonators. I don't know how small we can make them yet, but we're going to try and build some that and do some experiments on some invisibility, and also with left-handed metamaterials. We hope to achieve some other types of experiments. Maybe creating a warp drive. Sorry, I'm getting really tired. I'm about to fall asleep here. I'm trying to stay awake, guys. The electromagnetic field is not manipulated by does not manipulate gravity. They're not related. Gravity is something else. And I wanted to show a oh no, not that. I wanted to show Eric Verlinde, emergent gravity, right? If you type in Eric Verlinde, I don't know if you know who Verlinde is, but he's a very brilliant physicist. And no, it's not this one, not that one. 4 months ago? No, emergency. It was 2 weeks ago, right here on emergence. Heck yeah, go check out this. I posted this on Facebook already and a couple other sites, but it hasn't really gotten the viewership it deserves. So I wanted to post this up on here because people watch my channel, not just for the CIA stuff, but also for gravity and theories of gravity. This is a really cool one that just came out. Emergent gravity. It's not electromagnetic in nature. There we go. But yeah, the whoa. Are we still live? I hope so. It says I can't change. Oh, I might be changing other stuff. I'll add these links in the description later, but there's this whole idea of this holographic principle and information existing on these boundaries, and this two-dimensional theory of knots and connectivity and topology in space and quantum information specifically. And if we can manipulate quantum information, we might be able to manipulate gravity, that maybe gravity is an emergent phenomenon out of quantum information. And so the idea is that we get the surface of the craft by building it out of these metamaterials. We get the surface of our craft to act like a meta atom, where all the spin states can become aligned and entangled on the whole surface of the craft. And once you can create these spin glasses on the surface and create entire structures out of this spin glass, it's like the next step. They knew the theory, some of the Einstein-Cartan theory back in the day with the Glock, and they experimented with that, and they experimented with a lot of the rotating mercury plasma centrifuge engines to see if superconductors had gravitational drag when they rotate them. And this all started back in the early 70s and stuff, and were a number of other interesting studies. The 1980s with Frederick Alzafan and the Alzafan Boeing anti-gravity research into spintronics and Larmor frequency, and whether or not spin had something to do with gravity. Everyone knows Podkletnov and Project Grasp, where they discovered an anomaly in rotating superconductors in a lab in Finland, published about it, and caused quite a bit of controversy. And then, of course, like Marabou's work, where he built these he used these giant U.S. Navy lasers and did a lot of experiments with laser-propelled light craft, and which led to a lot of these future nose cones that do this directed laser supported directed energy air spike for hypersonic flow. And I thought that was super interesting. Started with this guy Bernard Haisch in the late 90s, mid 90s, and went through Hal Puthoff and a number of these other guys who worked on this stuff. And Hal Puthoff had this ultra terrestrials paper, which people have been talking about. Apparently, it's this paper that was published a while back, and everyone's been trying to get a hold of it. And someone finally got a hold of it through FOIA or what have you. I don't know, but they published it. And it's finally released, and it caused this big stink. And, I went on there and found this paper. It's just these models based on speculation of, well, if we have time travel and these other dimensional portal technology, then you're going to have then we'd have all this stuff. Well, let's start with the baby steps. Before we jump to the conclusion that we can do this stuff, we need to first do it, build a proof of concept, and then move somewhere scientifically from there with the process of getting it from proving that it's a real thing in our laboratory and that we can rebuild it and we can really make it, and prove that. Do a proof. We need a proof of concept. We can't just hope that we're going to discover time travel technology, and then we can write all kinds of speculation we want all day about what kinds of possibilities that would open up if we discovered those things, right? And that's what this paper is. It's a lot of that, and it's not. Let's work on one step at a time. Let's build this. That's where I'm at, and I want to know if it's real or not. And then once we can prove it and demonstrate it to the physics community, then we'll be able to see, what's real or not. But anyways, there's CIA manipulation all over the media, and I think a lot of the mainstream people and names and stuff, of course, Hal Puthoff was involved with the CIA and the the counterintelligence and psychological warfare operations division, not Project Stargate and all that crap. I think that some of the Skinwalker Ranch and some of this stuff might be a continuation of some of that stuff. More CIA manipulation. But in any case, I'm getting a little off topic with some of these things, and that's all right because people still care. I see a lot of these people in UFOs and stuff. They always have a guitar in the background. You know, you always see a guitar in the background. Does any of these people actually play guitar? Like I have a guitar in my background, and someone asked me, "Oh, you're just your quintessential guitar in the background. You probably don't even play like Jimmy Church and all this stuff." So I just wanted to, you know, bust some things out before I end this. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. All right, man. You guys have a good night. And remember, don't drink the Kool-Aid. This is the first time you've seen Jeremy play guitar, man. Thanks. Well, first time I've seen anyone on UFO podcasts with a guitar in it play guitar. Jesus. Let's put the guitar challenge on these guys. If you have a guitar, you have to like bust it out once in a while on a live stream, or at least have like one video of you playing something. So be better if you can do it live, so that way you can't just sit there and record it all day over and over until you get a good take. Because I want to see if people can actually like do stuff live, because sometimes we do that. I like to make up words live, and if I get someone else to work with musically, it gets even more fun, because I like to make up. I'll make up songs and I'll start singing about stupid stuff, and I'm pretty good at it, making up some words sometimes. So, does Jimmy Church play guitar? No, dude. He's got all those guitars in the background, and I would rip the Dimebag Darrell guitar and shred it way better than he could. Totally. Yes, all day. And we're gonna get Jimmy Church on for the guitar competition, and then we're gonna get Bob Lazar on for the physics competition, and we're gonna see who knows more physics. That'll be cool. I bet you he knows more like exotic weird stuff because he runs United Nuclear and sells a whole bunch of crazy stuff and always has. Gotten a lot of trouble for it too, but I bet you I know more anti-gravity research and I know more physics, just general physics and stuff, man. But anyways, it's not a competition. It's all about helping each other, man. And that's what we should be doing, is not competing. Not, I sit here and I talk all this crap about Corbell because I think a lot of this stuff is organized disinformation, but, and we can't really act on that. And it's important to know what actionable intelligence is, because nothing that Bob Lazar has told us, the element 115 from the S4 to any of that stuff, has ever been actionable and has ever led us anywhere that's been foiable or led to anything legit or tangible. And instead, I try to do research and, real antimatter, anti-gravity. This guy thinks muons might be the key to anti-gravity, that antimatter might fall up instead of down. So there's some experiments into that. And I'm still working some of these slides I want to put in they're just here in the no man's land at the end of the slideshow now until we figure that out. But man, what's in store for the future? I don't know. Let's build it. Let's build it together, and let's write cool music and jam out while we do it. Heck yeah. This PowerPoint, yeah, man, this is going to be my presentation for the conference. I can't wait. I can't wait, dude. This is going to be great. I'm pumped, and I'm bringing my guitar to the conference. So I'll see you guys all in Albuquerque if you guys go. That'll be awesome. Oh, I can't friggin' wait. Let's do this. All right, peace out, guys. Jeremy for president, for real. Vote for Pedro. Peace. Later, guys.